Getting lost on some old back road, find a shade tree and a honey hole, and talk to my grandpa again. And I see God in everything, trees in pain and nights in spring. So why do I still long for a home? I like to lay in a field on a cozy blanket and feel the fear of never waking.
All right, hey, welcome back. My name is Jacob O'Connor. I'm 23 years old. I graduated college 2 years ago. I've been hosting a podcast for the last 6 years where I interview some of the most successful people in the world. I also spent the last 18 months working on opening up a restaurant with my best friend. We've been open for the last 6 months. We just hit our first $1 million in sales. So this YouTube channel is where I document my entire journey, everything from personal to business to fitness. It's all here. So I appreciate you guys watching, and let's get into the episode. As you can tell by the name of the video, we just hit our first $1 million in sales, which feels absolutely incredible. Going back to not knowing anything about restaurants, never having worked in them before, to ideating this and just trying to figure it out on the fly. This is an incredible milestone for us. John and I are pretty happy about it. And yeah, it's been quite the ride the last 7 months. And one thing I want to say just right off the jump is this is top line revenue. This is sales. I don't want people getting the wrong idea. John and I are not rolling in cash. Like, restaurants are hard. They have tight margins and it takes a lot of cost control and a lot of work. But nonetheless, it is an accomplishment to hit our first 7 figures in sales. And to do that in just about 7 months, it feels really, really good. So in this episode, I'm going to kind of dive into what's been going on, both in the business and then in my personal life. And this is kind of the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one. So for those of you that don't know, after college, John and I decided we were going to franchise a restaurant. And we picked an upscale brunch concept called Another Broken Egg. We never worked in restaurants before. So when we signed with the franchise, we decided to move to Orlando, Florida, which is where they're headquartered, and work in the restaurants down there to try and learn as much as we could about restaurants before we opened ours. So we did that for about 4 months, moved back to Wichita, slept on our friends' couches, then eventually John and I signed a lease to live together. And that was 12 months ago. And so to go from never having worked in a restaurant, not owning a restaurant, not having it built out, to it being fully open, 7 months into business, our first $1 million in sales. We've had like 30,000 guests come through, just, all of these huge milestones. It is coinciding now with our lease ending in our personal lives. So it's kind of cool how both the personal element and the business element have coincided in this new chapter where John and I's lease is ending. We're in the process of moving. My room is a mess. And we're literally moving everything out of here today, going to find a new place to live. And that's happening at the same time as we're hitting these milestones with our restaurant. And John and I are in the early stages of looking for a second location. So big developments on both the personal and the business front. It is extremely hectic right now, but it's also a really, really fun time. And it's a journey that I've been very grateful for. And we're going to dive into a little bit more of what's going on in my life in this video. And just like that, I moved out of one house and into another. It's been a hectic couple of days. I'm not unpacked yet. Everything's a mess. But I had to move quickly because I had to be ready for one of the biggest podcasts I've ever recorded, which was yesterday morning. I interviewed the co-founder of Under Armour, which is obviously a publicly traded company. They do north of $4 billion in sales. His name is Kip Folks, and he helped start Under Armour. And he's got just incredible stories, connected to a lot of great people. He's business partners with Jocko Willink. It was honestly just an incredible interview. We've been trying to line it up for 8 months, almost a year at this point. And to get that knocked out was super, super cool. What did you learn about yourself through this process?
Man, that's a great question. I think not only myself, what I learned, but we learned as a team is you can do anything.
How did you cultivate belief in those early days?
Yeah, no, I think this is, again, man, your questions are spot on. This is going to be a fun podcast.
And then a couple of weeks ago, I had on a gentleman named Harley Schmidt, who is one of mine and John's mentors, who's got just an incredible story and a pretty sweet car collection. I'll put a clip of it here.
Yeah. I don't even want to talk too much. Shit, man. Why? Yeah. Scared of success once my prefrontal cortex develop. Perfectly good opportunities feel like a setup. That should be hobbling me. How can I get a leg up? Out in Tribeca, put me to Penthouse, cause all of this pressure is pent up. Yeah.
As always, things have been crazy, but wouldn't want it any other way. let's dive into the restaurant and talk about this big milestone that we hit and what this means for us. So real quick, I wanted to talk about kind of the thought process of where John and I are at. This milestone is great. At the end of the day, it's just a number, but to us, it indicates that we're heading in the right direction. And I want to talk about, the decision to start looking for a second restaurant. It's super exciting. John and I are still really new to this world. We're learning a lot, but the decision to start looking is us kind of taking a bet on ourselves, taking a bet on our learning curve. 18 months ago, we didn't know anything about restaurants, the hospitality industry. We've been open for about 7 months now, and we've learned so much in that 7 months. And we've got great mentors in our corner, and we just really feel the momentum behind what we're doing. So this decision to start looking for a second location, that doesn't mean we're going to open it up tomorrow. We're getting the indications that we're heading in the right direction. We're doing things that we need to do. And John and I don't want to play small. I think if you follow the YouTube channel, you follow my Instagram, you follow the podcast, that's not who John and I are. We are trying to build something of significance. We're trying to be aggressive, and we're also trying to balance that with patience and to be smart. But they always say fortune favors the bold. And so that means that John and I are going to start looking for a second location a little bit prematurely here, because we know that process is going to take a minute. Just because we're looking for a second location doesn't mean it opens tomorrow. Real estate's hard to find, especially a great site. And then you have to do the entire build out process, which, as we've talked about a lot, that'll take another 6 months on top of it. So just because we're looking right now, it could be a year, could be longer before we open. It could be sooner. But John and I really feel the momentum behind what we're doing. We want to take a bet on ourselves. And that means we want to try and grow this from more than just one restaurant, take that big step into a second restaurant. And then we have some really creative and exciting plans for what we're going to do after that. But this is just the next step in our progression, the next step in our journey of what John and I are trying to build. And it's super exciting. And it feels great to be at this point. And it's been a lot of work. It's been really difficult. I've tried my best to kind of document the ups and the downs over the last 7 months of us being open, and even pre-existing before we were open. All in all, I'm super thankful for the journey. I'm fired up. I'm excited. I've got so much energy. We've been so focused, and I just want to keep this momentum going. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, checking out this episode, supporting. And if you guys want to follow me on Instagram, you can find me at Jake O'Connor. The podcast is just Real Conversations. You can look it up. You can watch it on YouTube or any other platform. And if you guys have any questions, you want me to talk about other topics, you have suggestions for videos that you'd like to see, I would love to hear it. You can just send me a DM or you can comment on this video. But I'm just trying to document this whole journey. Like I said, win, lose, or draw, I think this is a super cool social experiment to have everything online so you can follow along with someone who is at the beginning of their journey. They're at ground zero, and you can watch and learn from my mistakes. And I hope you guys find value in that. And I appreciate you watching this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.